Taoiseach, to have just one home lying vacant during a housing crisis is unforgivable, but the level of vacancy and dereliction in Ireland today is an outright scandal. Approximately 160,000 homes are lying empty across the state, or rather we think that that's the number lying empty, because the truth, Taoiseach, is that we simply don't know. On every street in every town, we see vacant buildings, vacant houses, voids, which are visual evidence of the failure of government housing policy. And I think we were all reminded of it yesterday with the news of a collapse of a terrace of Victorian cottages in my own home area, just along the Grand Canal, as morning commuters travelled to work and to school. A terrace of houses, ironically owned by and right adjacent to the Construction Industry Federation headquarters, they collapsed. Embarrassing for the CIF, for sure, but lucky that nobody was injured in the collapse. And of course, emergency services had to be called to clean up the mess. But Taoiseach, that's just one very stark example of the scourge of vacancy and dereliction. And vacancy blights more than just streetscapes, because whenever I raise it in this House, and I've raised it many times, I see vacant stares from government. Nobody in government who seems to know the scale of the problem. You simply don't know how many empty homes there are in the country, and the already minuscule tax on those homes is not being paid by those who are sitting on them and failing to put them to use. The lengthy bureaucratic compulsory purchase process has been simply ineffective to tackle this issue. And it's not as though it's an issue that has just crept up on you. You should by now have worked out how to find out the scale of the problem and, crucially, how to tackle it. Yet 5 years since Fianna Fáil took on the housing brief, no one in government is showing any ambition to get to grips with the problem of vacant homes. So we get vacant stares, vacant ministerial offices, vacant government policies. We're told the CSO are researching the extent of vacancy over past years, and that'll be welcome. What we don't know is how your government's going to use that information. Weeks ago, my colleague Deputy Conor Sheehan asked a parliamentary question, asking the Housing Department to explain why vacancy has not been tracked, but that portion of the question was unanswered. So Taoiseach, I'm asking you, when will we see the Housing Department take on the basic task of determining how many homes are lying empty, and when will we hear from the Minister for Housing as to the plans to tackle dereliction and vacancy and to supply local authorities with adequate funding so that they can take on this task? Well, Taoiseach, we of course support any initiatives that will help to tackle the scourge of vacancy and dereliction, but it's simply not good enough for you as Taoiseach, for you as leader of a party that has held the housing brief for 5 years, to simply pass the buck to local authorities. That's not good enough. And you speak of a razor-like focus on tackling vacancy and dereliction. That's exactly what we're not seeing from your government and your housing minister. We're seeing an absolute vacancy in terms of policies. We're seeing, when we're hearing from our councillors across the country, that the resources available to local authorities to tackle voids, those resources are diminishing. Central government is undermining the capacity of local authorities to tackle vacancy and dereliction. We in Labour have supported local communities in bringing forward reports of vacant and derelict buildings and houses to local authorities so that we can help to be part of the solution to the problem. But what we're hearing from our communities is immense frustration at delays in the process, at slowness of response, and crucially at lack of funding from central government for local authorities. So it's not good enough for you to say local authorities aren't doing enough. The impetus and the driving focus must come from central government and from the Housing Department, and that's precisely what we're not seeing at present, and it's really symptomatic, it's really evidenced by the sort of collapse of derelict buildings that we saw so graphically yesterday.